Hey guys, Jeff at Hubie's Garage, and yeah, we're back out in the garage, and it's time to get to work on some more projects. Got lots of Tri-5s and some other things, so let's get to work. Well, we've got the Del Rey partially out today, but we probably won't be working on the Del Rey. And the gasser. We've got work to do on this one, but we're not going to continue working on this one today. And we won't be working on my Dad Howie's 55 Bel Air hardtop, although this one will be in the next couple of videos. We will be working on this one because it needs some repairs and a couple of updates. The VW is one of the last ones in the queue. However, we are talking about potentially putting the engine back in it in the spring. Nope, we're going to get back on the Bel Air two-door sedan because we're going to finish this project until we have a turnkey Tri-5. All right, so we're going to get into this, and we'll go ahead and get the fuel pump off. It's down there, and we'll go ahead and get the water pump off, get that fuel pump replaced, get the water pump painted, and after that we'll get in on the valve covers and start doing all the underhood cleaning and updates. All right, you can see the bolts came out fine. It looked like I had some thread sealant on it, and not sure why I had different stainless steel bolts. It normally would have driven me crazy to have a mismatched pair, but it is what it is. It must have been all that I had, and was probably in a hurry for a race. But yeah, you could see what a mess all this is. You know, I think what probably ended up happening with this heater hose nipple and the thermostat housing and then the thermostat itself, all this rust from sitting for 20 years. What probably happened is when I put the car away, I had no intention of putting the car away for this long, certainly not this long. Again, life, everything else got in the way, and I'm guessing that I probably had water only in this cooling system. I didn't have any coolant, you know, for lubrication, for anything like that. So we'll get everything apart, get a good look at it. I do have another short water pump if I need one, but yeah, this is what happened with this car when I tried to do a quick 2-day turnaround and get it back on the road. It was obviously a lot more problems, a lot more damage, and you know, taking it apart and doing it right is going to be the way to go. This original Torker 1, not the Torker 2 that's out there today, I do have a Victor Jr. that's I got brand new for Christmas probably 30 years ago, and it's, believe it or not, still in the box, still in the bag. It would probably be a decent intake to put on this thing, but I don't know how far I want to dig into this. You know, the intake, the bottom of the plenum looks great on it. We'll see how the water jacket up front here looks on it, and see if we can get this nipple out here and get that cleaned up and get everything sucked out of it. Hopefully this rust hasn't gone into the heads, but I'm sure it's probably caked with that stuff too. So more stuff to dig through. All right, well, took a little bit of effort, but got the thermostat popped out. You could see how cruddy that looks, and down inside there, yeah, there's a lot of problems, a lot of crud, a lot of buildup. Yeah, I'm gonna do everything I can to get that out of there without knocking it down into the cylinder heads, but I'm sure if an aluminum intake looks like this, then the cast iron cylinder heads probably look a lot worse. So let's keep digging. All right, well, got everything torn down about as far as I want to go with it. I got the fuel pump out, the water pump, valve covers, at the carburetor, thermostat housing, thermostat. I do have to take the water heater nipple there, probably get a new one, something else, I don't know. Be nice to find one in stainless. I don't know if they make those, but after what I went through with this thing, stainless is definitely the way to go. Yeah, and definitely making sure that I use anti-seize lubricant like I did in the past. But yeah, it's been fun going through this. It's kind of like opening up old memories of how I did this. You know, this is an L79 350 horse 327. I believe it's a 657 block. It's a 67, was out of a 67 Corvette. We bought it off a guy who actually had it in his El Camino. I don't know how much of it was taken apart. We ran it for a while and then went and rebuilt it later after our ETs started going down, or slower and slower. And we put some flat top pistons in it. So I think it probably went from the factory 11-to-1 probably down to about 10 1/4. It does still have the 462 camel hump heads. And I want to say that at one time, I don't know what I do remember is that I did have a set of mismatched heads on this engine. It was, I had one head that said Canada on it, another one that was obviously USA made. They were both 462s, but they weren't obviously a matched set, and the dates were a little bit off. I remember one cylinder head actually had pins for the studs. They had drilled holes in the back of the stud boss back here. They had drilled holes and then ran dowel pins through them. And it was weird because one cylinder head one cylinder head was pinned and the other one wasn't. I'm not finding, I probably have to look a little closer, but I'm not finding anything that, I don't find the Canada stamping. I know that I did have these rebuilt a couple of times. I don't know if maybe one of those cylinder heads was bad. You know, come to think of it now, we did have two sets of 462 camel humps at the house back in the day. So we probably just had the other set rebuilt. So, and it was probably the match set, which is, I'll have to check the dates on these, but I'm sure this is probably a match set. But I ended up taking these in. We ended up having screw-in studs, so they took the stud bosses down, and I ended up going with a Manley composite guide plate. And this was kind of, I don't know if I'd call it a cheaper way to put guide plates in it, but I know they've worked well. I know I've run the car in the past. I've run it all the way up to 7,200 in the past, and everything did fine. Of course, probably not going to be doing that this time because it's been sitting for quite a while, and obviously sitting for a long time, the valve springs are going to be pretty weak. So, but we'll see what happens. We'll get everything back in fighting order and see what we can do, see what it'll do at the track, and you know, we'll get it all back together, get it back on the street, and get it drivable again. So, all right, well, got water pump out, and I see another problem here. So, couldn't figure out why the coolant system was so low. I mean, almost empty. I opened up the petcock and nothing came out. Well, you could see the little turquoise marks there. There's one down there, and there's one here. And that means I've got a hole in my core. So radiator is going to come out. It's either going to go get record or fixed, probably record. I think this is an old Danchuk US radiator from the 80s. Probably be cheaper to go pick up a really cheap Champion. But I'm kind of going with a different kind of vibe with this car. And I don't want to have an aluminum radiator. Aluminum radiators were something that came later. And you'll see when I get everything back together why I want to stick with the original brass. Probably put a 4-row in it. Whatever cores they have that are the best flowing right now. But obviously that's going to come out. And yeah, you can see there was no coolant here. And how I ever let a car run like that. That's probably just all those passes that I went to the water hose at the end of the track and added water to the car, and that's the crap that went into it. This is I guess the sins of drag racing when you have a car that you really love. You know, it doesn't always get the best of care when you're drag racing, and you know, you get home Sunday night and you're tired, you don't want to do anything, and next thing you know, it's a race the next weekend. So yeah, time to fix a lot of those sins that have happened with this car. All right, so got the radiator out of here. I mean, years ago I had put a aluminum plate underneath my cross member and mounted the top of the fan to that, and then I had some regular mounting pins that went to the bottom that went through the radiator. Fortunately, those weren't where the leaks were, but yeah, there's a lot of rust. My chrome timing cover is a mess. My fluid dampener, harmonic balancer is a mess. My timing tab, barely read it. You know, I had a lot of pride in this car. When we first put it together, we took it to car shows, and you know, I kind of got tired of sitting around listening to all these old farts talking about how fast their cars were, and you know, all the trailer queens basically taking home all the hardware, all the trophies. So that was a real good indicator for me to take a different direction with this car, and that was when we started drag racing. Nostalgia drag racing was really huge, and it was nice to take a real top shelf car. You know, we had done a pretty nice job of restoring it. You know, all this black paint in here. We did the whole frame from the firewall forward. Did black Emron on that, the old DuPont. We went to the paint store and got some DuPont Centauri, and told them to mix up Gypsy Red, and got everything all prepped, went to shoot it, and you could see it's more of a Matador red. So that's why the firewall doesn't quite have that tomato soup color that the Gypsy Red does. It looks more like Matador red that you'd see on a 57. You know, I had the upper A-arm mounts. These are all chromed. You know, I had them chrome plated. I had all the washers, top, bottom, front and back. Those were all chrome plated. Just something that was a little bit of bling against all the black gloss paint, because gloss black was the hot ticket back in the early 80s, and that's what everything did. I mean, we even shot under the hood, the Emron, and but you know, it's good to get this thing apart. This is something I've really been dreading. I've been hoping that it hasn't looked as bad. Luckily, the ports are pretty decent shape. You know, there wasn't rust pouring out of it. The inside of the water pump. Apparently, before I put it to bed for 20 years, I think the back timing cover, I remember it got some rust through it, but it's not too bad. I did have a little bit of kind of a gooey residue that was in it, but you know, I'll try to flush the block out real good before I put everything back together. I got the fuel pump off. Well, sort of. I just have to get the inlet undone, and normally there's like about a 6-inch piece of rubber tubing that cuts over and goes to a solid fuel line. Well, at the drags, we didn't do that. We cut it off right at the firewall, and you could see it's got a rubber line going through the frame and down into the fuel pump. All right.
Your destination is on the left.
Pulling up to Gary's Radiator. This is an old school radiator shop here in Fullerton. Got a really nice caddy here. Looks like a 62. That's my guess. Clean car. All right, let's go see Bob. Bob's in the back here. So it looks like the radiator's got a couple holes in it, and he'll probably recore it with a high efficiency or high flow 3-row. So probably have it done at the end of the week. So, but yeah, he's got some reptilians in the back there, and we are talking old school radiator shop. Really cool to see places like this still in business, and I do everything in my power to support these guys. So Bob's a great guy. He owns the shop. He bought it from Gary, I think, years ago, if I remember right. But lots of drag racing history and background. A lot of Mopars up there, some Cudas, top fuel car. It's like a top sportsman car, and sponsored a lot of Little League teams. You know, you just don't see shops like this anymore. Yeah, question. How long have you guys been in business here?
Been here 56 years.
56 years, and you bought it from Gary, right? Was that? Yeah. Wow. Oh, that's awesome. Well, I tell you, these old school radiator shops are just harder and harder to find, and it's great. You're still doing great work out here. I really appreciate it. So there you go. Awesome.
I got a good attitude.
That's right. Well, that's what it takes. And those are the guys that I support. You know, the old grumpy guys are the guys that when I was a kid, you know, 10, 12 years old, in there buying my lawnmower parts, and they wouldn't give me the time of day. I usually was out the door and at another lawnmower shop. All right, so we're going to start cleaning things up, get the grease off the front of this thing. Started to kind of work on the front cross member a little bit, just to wipe it off, and you could see some of the original gloss Imron that's still looking fairly good. But intake manifold, I've got a couple of options, but I'm probably just going to go ahead and leave it alone and keep it on the car. The torquer's not a bad setup. It's 2500 to 6500, which is pretty much, after 6500, it pretty much gives up the ghost as far as power and whatnot. I've run this intake manifold for a long time. With that 650, it ran some good times. So I'm going to go ahead and keep it on. I do have a brand new Edelbrock Victor Jr., but I think I'm probably going to save that for a later build, in which might put a little bit more heat into this motor, do something a little bit more for it down the road. And you know, we were kind of tiptoeing into the 12s with this thing. I don't know what it's going to run now. That's been sitting for so long, but you know, maybe if I do some cylinder head work, new intake manifold, a few other upgrades, maybe we could finally work on getting this thing to the 12. So we'll see what it can do. But in the meantime, wanted to look and see how bad the rust is. I know there was a lot of rust down in a lot of these ports. I still have just dark black water coming out of the engine block. I'm going to go ahead and flush the engine block, but one of the things I want to do is I'm just going to go ahead and pull the borescope out, and we'll go ahead and look into the front water jackets of the cylinder heads and see how bad it is, and see if there's any way that we can do a little better job of getting that cleaned out. Like, comment, or please subscribe.